Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going on a seriously introspective journey into, well, the hidden logic of the mind. So if you've ever felt just a little out of sync with this incredibly fast-paced, highly reactive world we live in, stick around. Because we're going to decode a very specific mental framework that sheds light on exactly how you process reality. Let me just ask you directly. Do you ever feel like you're watching your own life play out from the back row of a dark movie theater? Seriously, think about those high-stress, absolutely chaotic moments. While everyone else around you is reacting instantly, yelling, crying, jumping to massive conclusions, are you just sitting there, totally detached, calmly observing the chaos unfold? Okay, let's dive right into this with Section 1, the back row observer, beyond overthinking. So if you actually answered yes to that theater question, I'm guessing you've probably faced some criticism over the years. Maybe people have told you you're too detached or that you just overthink absolutely everything. And honestly, you might have even accepted that framing. But let's get one thing straight right now. This feeling, it isn't shyness. It's definitely not about being antisocial or emotionally broken. No way. What's often completely misunderstood as this personality defect is actually a pretty powerful cognitive advantage. Which brings us to Section 2. Defining the analytical buffer and the science of detachment. To really understand what's going on here, we have to ground your emotional experience in actual psychological mechanics. Because it's not magic, right? It's science. Specifically, it's driven by something called metacognition. Now, most people think being entirely in the moment is the ultimate psychological goal. But for highly intelligent individuals, your brain actually creates a space, a literal buffer, between an external stimulus and your internal response. You don't just blindly have a thought, you actually watch yourself having that thought. And creating this kind of cognitive space, well, it requires intense emotional distance and a genuinely brutal honesty with yourself. It's actually fascinating to see how well recognized this is. Psychology highlights 7 distinct signs of having high cognitive distance. If you have this trait, your brain is actively performing a rare form of analytical buffering. This isn't just an internet theory. It's a highly documented, incredibly unique way of navigating emotional and environmental data. And this brilliantly illustrates what we'll cover in Section 3, the strategic simulation, the power of the pause. Now, what's really fascinating here is how this buffer actually operates when you're thrust into the messy, unpredictable reality of daily life. Think about the last time someone overtly disrespected you in a group setting. The average person's immediate reaction is usually super emotional, right? They get angry, defensive, maybe incredibly embarrassed. But with the analytical buffer, your reaction is fundamentally different. You probably stayed calm, you stayed neutral, you weren't just biting your tongue, you were actually performing a real-time predictive simulation in your head. You're essentially executing this really fast 3-step internal process. First, you observe the disrespect. Second, you step back, detach, and analyze exactly why that person felt the need to lash out. And third, by remaining completely unaffected, you remove the psychological payoff for the aggressor. You just don't give them that emotional reaction they're desperately craving. This internal strategic simulation is so powerful. You pause, you analyze, and you completely conquer the situation without lifting a single finger. Let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds into becoming the natural pattern hunter, seeing the unseen. You see, this psychological distance doesn't just protect you from disrespect. It actually unlocks a real-world cognitive superpower. While other people are just looking at isolated, totally random events, your mind operates entirely differently. You're automatically looking for connections in behaviors, little shifts in tone of voice, or nuances in conversations that everyone else literally completely misses. You are a natural pattern hunter, and this incredible sensitivity to patterns allows you to basically predict outcomes before they even happen. It's honestly like playing mental chess 10 moves ahead. To the outside world, sure, you might look like you're just staring into space, pacing around the room, or overthinking in exhausting circles. But what they don't realize is that you're thinking in these dense, beautifully complex layers. You're analyzing every single possible consequence and simplifying it all down until you unearth the absolute core truth of a situation. But there's another side to this, which brings us to Section 5, the cost of depth. The burden of the buffer. Look, we have to be completely honest here. Operating with this level of cognitive distance, it's not always easy. It actually carries a really heavy weight. And if you have this buffer, you intimately know these costs. You drastically prefer just one single deep, meaningful conversation over 100 shallow, small talk interactions at a loud party. Because your brain naturally rejects the inauthenticity of those shallow social rituals, you frequently end up feeling, well,
kind of like an outsider looking in. You carry around this silent depth, a complex inner world that makes people super curious about you, but leaves them entirely unable to fully grasp who you really are.
And this disconnect happens because you operate with a multi-lens perception. While the average person readily accepts face value explanations and loves simple black and white answers, you view the entire world through overlapping cultural and logical frameworks. Because you see all the angles, you constantly struggle to just settle for the simple answers. It makes it nearly impossible for you to view the world in binary terms, which, of course, leaves others totally confused when you don't just pick a side like everyone else does. Finally, Section 6. A rare psychological gift. Embracing your inner logic. So, the crucial point is, as we bring this explainer to a close, it's time for a completely different perspective on your own mind. Your mind is definitely not a curse. The detachment, the observation, the endless analysis, it's actually a really rare psychological gift. It just requires the right boundaries to keep you from burning out. And hey, you don't need to win some prestigious award or seek constant external validation to prove your intelligence. Your daily habits of deep observation and complex internal processing, they already reveal it. I want to leave you with this final thought-provoking question. Do you have the analytical buffer? Do you actively find yourself watching your own thoughts as they happen? If this resonates with you at all, drop the word buffer in the comments below. Let's see just how many of us are navigating the world from the back row of that theater. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Remember to embrace your inner logic, and as always, keep thinking in layers.